This week on Waterways. Turtle tagging in the Key West National Wildlife Refuge and songbird migration. Many plant and animal species found in South Florida and the Florida Keys are millions of years old. Sharks, for example, have not changed significantly in over 100 million years. Or sea turtles, who 80 million years ago navigated the ocean realms while dinosaurs lurked nearby.
As a group, turtles are probably the least modified reptiles. That is, they're the most primitive. If you were to look around at what you would see 80 million years ago, you would see turtles that looked a whole lot like the turtles of today.
The fact that sea turtles could survive millions of years without facing extinction is a testament to their resilience and adaptability. No environmental factors in 80 million years could disrupt the sea turtle's harmonious existence, until now. Historical accounts indicate that sea turtles were prolific in the New World when Columbus arrived in 1492. For green turtles, estimates of population sizes range from 60 to 600 million in pre-Columbus times to about 60,000 today. The problem is that today it is unclear how many sea turtles still remain. In fact, scientists know next to nothing about sea turtles. Enter Mike Brissett from the nonprofit company In-Water Research Group, Blair Witherington from the Florida Fish and Wildlife Conservation Commission, and Dean Bagley from the University of Central Florida. These three, with a group of volunteers, have recently undertaken a new study.
The way the whole project started was Tom Wilmers from U.S. Fish and Wildlife was very interested in finding out what was going on with sea turtles in the Key West National Wildlife Refuge. He contacted us because he knew we were good at catching sea turtles. We do it up in the Indian River Lagoon, and we also have a nonprofit organization that we just started to do this kind of work.
I met Tom Wilmers about a year and a half ago. He was introduced to me, and he apparently had found money to have a turtle project in the Key West National Wildlife Refuge, but he hadn't been able to find anyone to do that work yet. We're interested in turtles, we're curious about turtles, we want to know as much as we can know about turtles, and it gave us another developmental habitat that we could learn about juvenile turtles.
So Tom asked us basically to find out in the Key West National Wildlife Refuge what kind of basic questions about sea turtles. What kind of sea turtles do we have there? What kind of numbers do we have? Size frequencies, sex ratios.
We're extremely lucky to have people of this quality come down here. We've got a lot of people that are devoting their free time, their vacations. A couple are paid, but most of them aren't. And I guess we've had as many as 12 individuals involved in this project already.
2002 marked the first year of a 5-year study being conducted in the Key West National Wildlife Refuge. The refuge encompasses an area 2 miles off Key West, all the way to the Marquesas, 22 miles west of Key West.
Everybody's excited about this area down here. The whole turtle community throughout the country has always wanted to know more about the Marquesas, for example, because we've had so many satellite turtles come in here relative to how many have been tagged. And we knew virtually nothing about turtles down here except how many nested, and that's really a small component of the importance of this area.
You're looking at a huge area, and to find turtles, when you're scanning the horizon on your boat and looking for sea turtles, there's so much water to cover that it requires a huge effort, because it's like looking for something the size of your doormat swimming on the bottom, and it looks like the bottom, and you have to be really good at picking that out.
Mike uses 2 boats with 2 different teams to maximize his efforts. When a turtle is spotted, the team springs into action.
Right in front of us! It's going! Slow down, slow down! We just went over it! Oh! Slow down,
The method Mike and his crew use for catching the turtles is called rodeoing. Because the water is clear and shallow in the Keys, the researchers can most effectively catch the turtles by jumping on the turtle's back and wrangling them to the boat.
We actually catch turtles in tangle nets in other areas of Florida. This is different because the water is very clear and you're in shallow water, and it's much easier for us to target a turtle and jump on it.
We tried catching turtles with nets. They filled with grass and the currents were too strong. We tried catching turtles a number of other ways, but this hand capture technique seemed to work the best. You see the turtle, you position the boat, you put a diver in the water, you catch the turtle, you bring it into the boat. It was a very good technique.
Stop!
Once we get them on the boat, turnaround time is, from the time we catch them to the time we release them, is usually within 20 minutes.
32. Okay. 49.7.
In addition to numbers that we record, just standard measurements, we also record what conditions the turtle's in. I mean, is it in good condition? Is it in poor condition? Is it underweight? Is it emaciated? Or is it fat? Just basic things like that. Or say a flipper's missing, and what can we tell what caused that flipper damage? Was it, or carapace damage? Was it a boat hit that's been healed over, or was it a shark? We look in their mouth to make sure there's no hooks in their mouth, or just get an idea of if there's anything in their tar, maybe plastic. We try to take a really overall look at the turtle's general health.
One of the health indicators that the scientists paid particular attention to was the existence of tumors, called fibropapillomatosis, or FP for short. This once rare disease has reached epidemic proportions in some areas, and is found in every ocean basin in the world.
Well, one of the things we look very closely for is any sign of a disease that the turtles get, a tumor disease called fibropapillomatosis, which is a big way to describe warts that these turtles get. And it sounds pretty innocuous, these warts, but they're actually quite harmful to the turtles. The warts get very large, even as large as grapefruit or melons hanging off these turtles. In very sensitive places like their soft tissues in their eyes. The sea turtles certainly die from it. We know that the turtles get the disease at a pretty high rate in Florida Bay and the Keys, and we'd like to know why.
While diseased turtles have been found throughout South Florida, Florida Bay and Indian River Lagoon have proved to be hotspots for FP. Green turtles in Florida Bay showed tumors in 40% of cases in 1980. This number grew to 70% in 1990. Luckily, these loggerheads show no signs of the disease. With each turtle weighed, measured, and visually checked, blood is drawn from the turtle so the lab work can later be done. The blood can tell volumes about the turtle's health and behavior.
When we have these samples run for DNA genetics analysis, what we expect to find out is what they call a haplotype. It helps us better understand where these turtles might have originated, what beach they hatched from.
A very important aspect of the study is being able to re-identify the turtles that we encounter. And it's more difficult than you think to put a mark on a sea turtle that will persist for years and years and years during the time you'd like to learn something about the turtle. One tag that has been used for decades is the metal Inconel flipper tag. That's a very good technique, but those tags do fall off every once in a while. The other tag used was injected underneath the turtle's skin, and it is a pit tag, a passive integrated transponder, a little tag size of a grain of rice that is a transponder encapsulated in glass and injected underneath the skin of the turtle. And in theory, it will stay in for the life of the turtle.
We're going to put a number on this turtle because we've already worked it up. And if we run across it again, we'll say, okay, that's number, say 10, and we'll know where it is. We'll record the location, but we won't have to worry about jumping on it again and then realizing after we brought it up that it has tags. We can spend our time looking for other turtles.
No flopping.
As Mike and his team sometimes search for hours without finding any turtles, it can be discouraging to think of the reports from Columbus's times. While overt greed killed the turtles years ago, habitat destruction may finally wipe out the rest of these beautiful creatures.
Sea turtles, as animals go, are pretty closely linked to people. A lot of things we do affect turtles. Simple things like throwing a bit of garbage into the ocean, or a lot of agriculture and industrial things that happen on land affect sea turtles. In the foods we eat, especially the seafoods we eat, many of those things are connected to the plight of sea turtles.
There are plenty of opportunities for the average citizen to protect sea turtles. The type of fish you eat and how it is caught can influence sea turtle populations that can die by being drowned in fishing nets. Or, if you have a house on the beach, you must make sure that your outdoor lights are off during nesting season because hatchlings can get confused and often lose their way. It is hard for many people to understand the importance of sea turtles if they don't feel like they have an immediate use for them. But losing these turtles may be an early indication of a vast disturbance in our marine world. Each fall and every spring, hundreds of thousands of birds funnel through the Florida Keys during migration. While migrating raptors can glide on the thermals created by the sun's heating of the earth, smaller birds, like songbirds, must ceaselessly flutter their tiny wings to get to their destination. While it is widely accepted that migrant songbird populations are in decline, most of the focus has been on the loss of the birds' breeding or wintering grounds. However, the effect of losing migratory habitat should not be overlooked. Preserving the places that songbirds stop over to rest and refuel is essential to the conservation of many migratory species.
Songbirds mostly use fat as a fuel for migratory flight because it's a relatively lightweight, high energy source. So, but they also store a little bit of energy in bulking up their flight muscle. If they use all their fat, then they'll start to catabolize some of the muscle and use that as fuel. When they run out of fat and they run out of muscle, then they're in trouble. They have to stop and they have to refuel by stopping over, as it's called, hanging out in a habitat like this hardwood hammock for several days to regain enough condition to continue their flight.
Casey Lott is in charge of a recent study that will provide baseline data quantifying habitat use by migrant songbirds in the Keys. He has assembled a team that examines songbirds' diet and their ability to gain fat to fuel migratory flights. This information will help formulate conservation strategies for the land managers.
Some of our information in this study may help to prioritize future purchases of areas that are better habitat quality for migratory birds than others. That's something we're trying to assess. What is a good stopover habitat for migratory birds in tropical hardwood hammock?
The team has established a temporary banding station in a hardwood hammock in the Upper Keys. With volunteers, guest scientists, and a shoestring budget, Casey's study will be the first full-season systematic quantification of songbird migration in the Florida Keys.
Different species come through at different times. This first 2 weeks of the project, we've been catching mostly ovenbirds. That's the most common species right now. In a few weeks, we'll start getting large numbers of black-throated blue warblers, American redstarts, catbirds. These are some of the most common species of neotropical migrants that we see in the Keys.
Encircling the banding station are 20 mist nets. Before sunrise, Casey and his crew set up the mist nets throughout the hardwood hammock. This season marks the first of a 4-part study over 2 years. For fall migration, Casey begins the field work in late August and traps continually until the dismantling of the banding station in late October.
Migration is a really spotty event. You can have a huge day and then you can have 3 slow days and then you can have another huge day. So if you take a day off, you can miss a really big event. So we're out here banding every single day for 5 hours after sunrise for 8 weeks during fall migration.
As the birds forage in the leaf litter or fly between branches in the surrounding canopy, they are harmlessly trapped in the pockets of the mist net.
Et voila. I need to lower the net down a bit so I can extract him.
Every 30 minutes, the nets are checked for trapped birds. When the bird is freed from the net, Casey gingerly places the bird into a bag to keep it calm. When all the nets are checked, the birds are brought back to the banding station to be tagged and measured. At the banding station, the birds are removed from the bags and the bags are searched for fecal samples. Then, the bird is tagged. Next, the team measures body mass using an electric balance. Then, the length of the bird's wing is measured. Later, when the data is examined, the bird's weight can be correlated with their wing size and total length.
The birds that are migrating through here right now are using this habitat to regain conditions so they can migrate further. What we'd like to know is how long are they staying in these habitats. So we'll band this guy now, and maybe if we catch him 4 days later, we're able to tell it's the same individual because they all look the same. Band number will tell us that. And then we'll be able to check his condition in 4 days relative to his condition right now.
Some birds, like songbirds, spend as many as 2 to 4 months a year along their migration routes. Some travel from as far as northern Canada south to Brazil. The Florida Keys present the birds a last chance to bulk up before crossing the ocean. Thus, there must be an adequate food source in the Keys.
You can see real well through the feathers. You can see the flight muscle, you can see where it stores fat, and we're able to assess the energetic condition of the migrants, each one that we catch, relatively easily.
Because of the teamwork and diligence, the birds are most often tagged measured, and released within 30 minutes. The team tags an average of 15 to 20 birds per day, but some days the team can see 3 times as many. This fall's biggest day was 95 birds banded in 6 hours. In addition to the myriad of data collected on trapped birds, Casey collects field observations of free birds foraging in the hardwood hammock. By relaying the bird's behavior and use of habitat into a small tape recorder, Casey can later make notes about which species are seen in which trees and how they are utilizing the resources. This information nicely complements the data on trapped birds.
We get a lot of information from doing foraging observations on individual birds. We can tell the rate at which they're foraging in the forest, so the number of attacks they make on prey items per minute is a good indicator of how much food is available to them here. We can tell if they're eating insects or fruit and in what proportions, and we can tell if there's any tree species that they prefer.
Determining the diet of these migrating songbirds is essential to future land conservation strategies. However, observation is not the only way to discover what these birds are eating.
To some people, this may be bird poop. To me, it's valuable information. Later, we'll take this back to the lab and poke through it underneath a dissecting scope, and this will, when you magnify this 100 times, you'll be able to see small little fragments of insects that have passed through the digestive tract of the birds, and we're able to categorize their diet.
In addition to examining fecal samples, Casey takes biweekly branch clippings and leaf litter samples. Later, at Audubon's Tavernier Science Center, Casey examines the samples taken at the hardwood hammock.
So it would take forever, and it might be impossible for us to pick through this sample and find all the bugs. Thankfully, we have this high-tech device called a Berlese funnel. This is a jar with alcohol in it, a sample jar. I'm going to put it inside this bucket. And then I just have this clamp lamp that's been turned into a funnel. Pour our leaf litter into it. Cover it up. And turn on the light. So after 24 hours, you can come in, turn off the funnel. Inside, this litter is all dried out. Move it off to the side. And all the bugs that were once in here are now in the sample jar.
While the work undertaken by Casey Lott and his staff may seem daunting, it is necessary when considering the pressures being placed upon the last remnants of hardwood hammocks left in the Florida Keys. Their study can be used to determine the most beneficial habitat for migrating songbirds. If these birds only encounter strip malls, billboards, and vacation homes during their migration, it will not matter how well their wintering grounds are preserved. Like gas stations on a road trip, these birds must have a place to stop and refuel if they are to survive their journey.